Hey, what's up, everybody? Wave Watches here. I'm here today with another out of theater review for Madam Web, and I am just kidding. I'm sorry, I can't bring myself to see that movie. And no, it's not because it's an all female led movie or anything like that. These Sony Spider-Man villain spin-off movies, I just can't bring myself to see them really at all, let alone actually pay to see them at the movies. I haven't seen any of them since the first Venom, and as of now, I'm planning on keeping it that way. I'm here again with I guess kind of like my follow-up review or like follow-up thoughts on Bob Marley One Love. I decided to see that again today, and I decided to see it again because, firstly, like I said, I just couldn't bring myself to purchase a ticket for Madam Web. And secondly, because I was wondering to myself, like, whether I was perhaps a bit too, like, forgiving of the movie the first time around, whether I let, like, the music get to me, kind of like what a lot of people said about those who really love Bohemian Rhapsody, that movie, though there's nothing wrong with loving that movie. I don't love that movie, I like it, but there is the opinion that that's a mediocre movie that a lot of people like gave a pass on just because it featured Queen's music and like them discovering songs, and that kind of created some bias, and I guess people like were able to overlook like the numerous flaws. That's one opinion of Bohemian Rhapsody. And I was wondering with Bob Marley One Love whether this was my Bohemian Rhapsody, where it's actually an incredibly flawed film, but because it has Bob Marley music, I was willing to give it a pass. So that's what I was thinking to myself going into this for the second time. And thankfully, my opinion pretty much remains the same as it did the first time I saw this in theaters, and gave it that high rating of an 8 out of 10. I know that obviously there's more so on the critic side. I'm not so sure about the audience. I hear that audiences like this better, but more so on the critic side, I'm definitely aware that this movie's not getting a lot of love from critics. But I'm gonna be real with you guys. I barely look at Rotten Tomatoes scores or like first opinions on Twitter or social media or anything like that. I've talked about this before. I prefer to I'm sorry, but I prefer to like think for myself and ignore like groupthink, especially when it comes to movies, because at the end of the day, no matter what you say, no matter how passionate you are about cinema, film is subjective entertainment. What's a masterpiece to one person can be total garbage to another person, and that's just my opinion. And no matter how many people like crowd around like something on Twitter and say like, oh, this is the best thing ever, this is the worst thing ever, I prefer to think for myself. And I guess that's what we have here, because again, a lot of mixed opinions on this movie, but I really enjoyed it. What can I say? But here's the thing. The second time around, I definitely picked up on like some of the things that I've heard people like talking about with Bob Marley One Love, like as far as the problems are. I picked up on that the second time around for sure. Yes, it's a bit like, it feels like once again, like a lot of stuff was cut out of it. It does feel like it's a bit too fast paced. And I will say another thing that I really wasn't thinking about before, but I picked up now because I was more attentive this time around, and I was paying more attention to the closing credits, was that this was directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green, the same guy who directed King Richard with Will Smith, the biopic about the Williams sisters and whatnot. And I kind of thought about how better that movie of his is compared to this one, and only slightly, because again, I still really enjoyed this, but I think that this movie would have been even better. Like I would have like loved it if it was as long as something like King Richard, which I recall being around 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I do recall like that movie having a lot of like slower character moments and conversations, more so than this movie does, whereas this movie One Love is just under 2 hours, 1 hour and 47 minutes. So that's one thing that I can say about this film, and like just picking up on that the second time around, that I felt like it definitely would have been like great not just good, but great, like really great, if it was longer, and if we did get more character development for some of the minor characters in Bob Marley's life, some of the people in the background, if we had gotten to know them a bit better, know their relationship to Marley, this would have been a great movie. But and I'm definitely not trying to, like, you know, defend my appreciation for this movie and like all that. I'm not gonna go on the defensive, but I will say this: there is like a whole really long 2.5 hour documentary on Bob Marley, appropriately named Marley, that exists, that was made like I think like 10 years before, you know, this movie came out. And I've seen that documentary a couple of times. So I myself, having seen like a whole 2.5 hour documentary on Bob Marley already, wasn't bothered by the fact that they skipped over like a lot of stuff, that they didn't talk about this person or that person, or him creating this album, or him, you know, rising to prominence. That didn't bother me, but I could definitely understand how those who might not be as familiar with Bob Marley would be significantly bothered by this movie skipping over a lot. I totally respect that, and I totally understand that. But as for me, myself personally, that really didn't bother me at all. I was still able to fully appreciate this movie for what it was. Like I said in my first review, it's definitely about the last few years of his life, and it's not trying to give you his whole life. There are some flashbacks there of him as a little boy and a teenager, but it's definitely not trying to show you his life in chronological order, the whole thing from childbirth to his death. And I can appreciate that, and I could get behind it. So yeah, my opinion on Bob Marley One Love is about the same. You know, I loved it and enjoyed it just as much as I did when I watched it for the first time. I do acknowledge that it probably would have been a much better movie if it was like maybe 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2.5 hours, just because, like I said, it registered this time that the same guy who did this did King Richard, which I will admit is a bit better than this. But what can I say? I still had a good time with it. And you know, if I'm biased just because it featured like songs of his that I liked, and I admit to dancing a little bit in the theater, so what, man? Because you know what? At the end of the day, we go to the movies to have a good time. Ideally, have a good time if we enjoy a film, and you know, kind of escape from our troubles for a bit. And at the end of the day, Bob Marley One Love accomplished that. I thought the acting was once again rock solid. I've heard some people say that Kingsley Benadir doesn't do the best job as Marley, but I didn't mind it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I guess this is my Bohemian Rhapsody, because I know people who really love that movie despite kind of the mixed reaction that I got. This is my Bohemian Rhapsody, and I still enjoy Bohemian Rhapsody. But like I said in my original review, I do like Bob Marley One Love a bit more than this. So there you have it. My opinion hasn't really changed that much after seeing it for a second time. So yeah, I still really love Bob Marley One Love, and I don't care that critics have a mixed reaction to it, and that people in general who don't like it really don't like it. Doesn't bother me. Still enjoy this movie, and a word to the wise out there: don't let that discourage you if you really enjoy something and other people really hate it. Like, why let that change your opinion? So yep, this has been another edition of Wade Watches. I'm all done with my words of wisdom and whatnot. Still enjoy this movie, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.